Welcome on in here to First Pitch. Just like that, we got some series in the championship series. And if you were listening to the show yesterday, well, kind of told you what was going to be happening here. It's not always as easy as it looks, folks. I'm your host, Dan Alexander, and coming back to join me again, I got Steve Merrill alongside me, and back with a triumphant return, Jeff Michaels, the stat prince, here with us in the house. We're breaking down Houston and Texas up first. We'll talk a little Phillies and Diamondbacks, but no sweeps happening here in the championship series. And Steve, I'm going to start with you. Verlander and Montgomery here tonight with the game that goes off at 5:07 on the East Coast. That's Houston and Texas. And we kind of talked about it yesterday. Like if Houston was able to string together two here, you have now a best of three series for who's going to be representing in the AL. How are you breaking down this matchup? And really, what's your thoughts moving forward? Because I feel like the momentum is squarely, as our producer Robert will be happy to hear, in the corner of the Stros here. What do you think?
Robert gets a Texas team in the World Series no matter what, so he can hedge a little
Fair.
bit there. But he's a Houston guy more than an Arlington, Dallas guy, I guess. Let's look at the adjusted series price now. Astros are now favored to win this. So as we were yesterday, we were saying the most likely outcome was a 58% chance that we'd have Rangers and Phillies. But when the series began, the most likely outcome was about a 56, 57% chance we'd have a rematch, Astros and your Phillies. And now that's what it's looking like. Houston's minus 130, take back plus 110 on the Rangers now. So that was a pivotal game four. And I mentioned that on the show, as you said yesterday, that whoever won game four yesterday was going to be favored to win the series. Obviously, if Texas had taken a 3-1 lead, it was pretty much over. But now Houston has tied it back up 2-2. And you do feel like that momentum has shifted. The offensive momentum has definitely shifted. This is a Houston team that had 4 runs total in the first two games on just 11 hits. They've put up 18 runs on 23 hits the last two games, and now it's the third game in 3 nights. So I think that momentum continues. Meanwhile, Texas has really cooled off. The Rangers had 30 hits in the 3-game sweep against the Orioles, including 18 runs on 22 hits in those last two games. They've had 8 hits or less now in all 4 ALCS games. They were very fortunate to win the first 2 games on the road. They only had 6 hits and 8 hits. They have not been hitting the ball well like they did most of the season. And I'm not looking for that to all of a sudden change here. So I do think Houston's in the driver's seat, and they're a championship caliber team. They're the defending World Series champs. That's not the type of team I want to get in front of. And it's still a pivotal game five. It was a must win yesterday, but it's now a best of 3 series. And I just think the Astros have pulled ahead in this one. Probably are worth a look at minus 130 on the series price. And you're also getting them at minus 105 tonight. I mentioned the team total yesterday. By the way, the last 2 days, I've had strong best bets from my clients at wagertalk.com on the over 9 and the over 9.5 in games 3 and 4. Not going to be using it tonight just because that Texas offense concerns me. But as I mentioned on the
Mhm.
show yesterday, Dan, I think the Astros team total is worth a look. It was 4.5 yesterday. They got to 10. It's priced 4.5 again today. So if you're going to play this one, Astros and maybe Astros team total over would be my recommendations.
Yeah, and it's sitting painted across the Wager Talk live odds screen as far as the game total goes, sitting at 9 under, slightly juiced at majority of books there, and then pretty close here, almost a pick 'em if you're talking about the money line. Looking like the consensus is exactly that, minus 110 both ways. Shop around, there's better prices on both sides. Jeff, I want to get your thoughts. You heard Steve's there as far as the Astros and Rangers are concerned. I know you have a best bet coming up that I definitely want to hear about. But first, I want to know how you're breaking down this game and really how you see the series standing as we're moving towards the weekend.
Yeah, I can't argue with anything that Steve said. Obviously, this Texas offense is different than what we've seen prior this season, but I don't quite think that this series is decided. I've been on Houston back-to-back days actually in the last 2 games of the series, and we won both of those. And one of the biggest reasons is because this division, this head-to-head series all year, and this Astros team has actually been significantly more dominant on the road. I mean, look at these numbers, these records on the year. Houston 8-1 in the second half of the year against AL teams putting up 5.5 runs or more on the road. They're 9-1 in their last 10 road playoff games. That's over the last 2 years. I mean, they're 25 games over 500 on the road. 20-4 on the road against the division in the last 24 games, 8-1 against lefties. I mean, that list just goes on. This series head to head has been dominated by road teams. I mean, this year alone, the road team is 13-4 in these two, again, with these two teams at the helm, with the Rangers taking on the Astros on the season. Houston's 8-1 this year in Arlington. So, you do have to think there's obviously going to be some fan carryover into Texas Stadium there with being in state, not exactly right next door, but definitely close enough to travel to, especially in a playoff game. And I really think that road atmosphere takes a little bit of the pressure off and has been the defining factor between these two teams all year. So I don't think that changes here tonight. I am back in the Astros again. I mean, Jordan Montgomery, he's 1-7 this year after allowing 0 earned runs in his last start, and he's just 2-11 on the year following a Texas loss. So he doesn't have great numbers here either. And like I said, the road team has been so dominant that I am definitely back in the Astros here tonight again. But I wouldn't count these Rangers out going on the road to close out the series in a high pressure situation. So I may wait to see, you can't wait too long to get a series price, obviously, but I really think we could be looking at an over 6.5 games for the series. I think could be a bet. I do think we're going to see a game 7.
Yeah, and it really all comes down to, I think, what happens here tonight. I mean, Houston, since they got to Texas, I mean, well, they're in Texas, but you know what I'm saying. Since they got to that field where they have worked very well at the Rangers ballpark, it's been all Astros. And you also, I think it's interesting enough and worth noting, you get the same pitching matchup that you saw in game one. And it's not really like Texas lit up the board there in game one. It was just Houston really couldn't find the bats, kept leaving players stranded. So it'll be interesting to see how it works out tonight. Hop in the comments below. You heard the guys' thoughts on how they're attacking tonight and their thoughts on the series moving forward. Is it wrapped up? Is it Astros doing the reverse sweep, or do you think we get a game 7 and we get a little back and forth action here? How are you betting tonight? How are you betting the series? We want to know in the comments below. And while you're down there, make sure you hit subscribe. You never miss any of the great shows, including Steve Merrill's Fade the Public video that should be up rather shortly. So keep your eyes peeled for that. If you love betting college football, if you love betting NFL, if you like knowing where the money's going, one of the best shows you can watch every week. Steve breaking down the board and letting you know where the public is eyeing. All right, guys, I want to know what you're eyeing here tonight in the Phillies and Diamondbacks series. Steve and I said yesterday on the show, it was pretty much a stay away for us. We thought the spot really set up nicely. If the Phil's bats were going to cool off, it was going to be after traveling into Arizona in a ballpark that isn't quite so raucous. But Phil's, again, they're the favorites on the bounce back. Total sitting at 9.5. So the runs that didn't come yesterday may be expected here tonight. So I want to get your thoughts back on this one, Steve. Hey, they at least grabbed the game here. Do the Phillies bounce back, or are they going to be having to make sure they get back to Citizens Bank Park to wrap this one up as we move forward? You think they get a leg up, or Diamondbacks continue to flex? They looked pretty darn good last night, Steve.
Yeah, Dan, as I mentioned earlier, I had one best bet yesterday. It was the over in the Astros game. That was an easy winner. I stayed off this game. As we talked about on the show, I said I thought Philly had all the momentum. They've been dominating the series. They were the better team. But you did worry about that trip out west, if it would disrupt the momentum and maybe give Arizona a little bit of life. And that's what it appeared to be. And yes, it was on the scoreboard. It was a 1-1 game late. They pull ahead. They win 2-1. But if you look at the statistics, Arizona should have won by a lot more. 9 hits to 3, 10 men's left on base. Philly left 3. So Philly had 3 hits, 3 left on base. Arizona had 9 hits, 10 left on base, and it was only 2-1. Should have been a higher scoring win. And for that reason, I think Arizona very well might tie this series up tonight. And that would send it back to Philly. Of course, game 5 is in Arizona as well tomorrow. And the game 6 and 7 would be back in Philly. So this is a pivotal game for Arizona, and I think they found some life. Obviously, if it got to 3-0, this series was over. Now that it's 2-1, it's a new series. That's the bad news for you as a Phillies fan. The good news, though, is if you look at the series price, Phillies still have an 80% chance to win 2 more games in this series and get it done. They're minus 450, take back plus 350. If you split the difference, that's 4-1. That's exactly 80% odds. But I think Arizona's a live team in this game tonight. And you talked about fading the public in the NFL. By the way, my college football top 25 video is posted right now. There's some
Mm,
public dogs that you can fade in college football as well this week in that video. But I bring it up because the most public play that I'm seeing tonight is the Phillies, and that's not a surprise.
yeah.
They're a favorite, but at a minus $1.25, minus 130, they shouldn't be as public as they are. I'm seeing 70% consensus.
Yep.
That would make them like a $2 favorite. So yeah, I think there's some reasons to be concerned tonight, and we very well might see at least 6 games. I think Arizona is worth a look as a live dog tonight.
Yeah, I'm completely there with you, and that's why if I was going to bet it last night, just wasn't enough plus money with what we saw so far in the series for me to place a wager on Arizona. So I just watched with my hands in my head, thinking, what the hell is going on with these Phillies bats right now? And that's been the story of this Phillies team all year long. Last year as well, when they're hot, when they go silent, boy, do they go silent? So it'll be interesting to see. What do you think? Steve thinks we got a live dog here tonight. Hop in the comments below. Let us know if you agree. And I want to get obviously Jeff's thoughts on this one. We were talking before the show, and we're not just having Jeff back on because he's sucking up and he's looking towards my Phillies here. I already wanted him on the show before he told me he was betting the Phils. So why do you think the bounce back, whether it's public or not, is potentially imminent here tonight, Jeff?
Yeah, I got a couple props I was gonna throw out there too for you, but that
Please
is my
do.
best bet here tonight. That's actually a premium play for me tonight too. I'm riding with these Phillies, and I think that we see a regression spot from Arizona's pitching here. The one thing that really stood out to me, Arizona's bullpen hasn't allowed a home run in the postseason. So that led me to looking at some home run props, even for the game. Over 2.5, you're getting plus money, or you look Phillies over 1.5 home runs, you're plus 135 there. But Arizona's starting Joe Manaply, fourth start of the year, and they're going with a bullpen game. So I think that's a little nerve wracking for Arizona in this situation. I mean, they haven't allowed a home run yet this season. You got a Phillies team that can obviously put some power behind the ball. And the biggest guy out of that Arizona bullpen, at least in the postseason right now, has been Paul Sewald, who was acquired at the trade deadline. And he went a full inning last night and threw over 20 pitches. So I know that doesn't seem like a huge number, but for a reliever, you got to think about what kind of situation Arizona's in. The pressure is on Philly, I think, a little bit in this situation after giving up that game last night. But I do think Arizona was fortunate getting Ketel Marte to fall into place with that at bat at the end of the game. I don't think that there's really anyone else on that Arizona roster that would have been able to pull that off right now. I mean, Corbin Carroll's been good all
Mhm.
year, but not recently. He hasn't been as hot as he has been. Those big bats that we've seen from Arizona haven't really stepped up to the point that, Ketel Marte has, and he got the job done last night. So I don't think that this Arizona bullpen can really continue this stretch, especially thinking about the fact that I know Mantiply is going to be the implied starter, but for the fact that the bullpen's throwing 9 innings in this game, and now you want them to go 9 innings against this Phillies offense, who, mind you,
Sure.
is 20-7 this year off a loss as a favorite when they're taking on the same team in the same series. That goes back to the regular season. And they're 11-4 on the year when they're taking on the same team that just held them to one run or less. So both those trends come into play here. And, this same thing that happened last year, I think we overlooked that Phillies pitching staff a little bit and what they could have, what they were potentially capable of in the postseason. Well, hey, that pitching staff is holding opponents under 2 runs per game in the last 7, and the opposing batting average is just 183 over that span. So, I don't, it's hard to throw a bullpen game and string together enough guys that can consistently throw well. It leaves a lot of opportunity for Philly to take advantage of. And I think it leaves a lot of room for error for this Arizona team, which, if you look at yesterday, it is something that they can't afford because a little bit of error yesterday, and this would have been a 3-0 series. So, giving up that opportunity today is not something that I'm looking to back here. And best bet premium play over on the site is your Philadelphia Phillies, dude.
Mm. I'm not going to be hating on the breakdown there. What do you think, listeners and viewers? Hop in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you down there. Big thanks to these guys taking some time out of their Fridays to hopefully get you some winners here on the Diamond. Make sure you check both of them out over at wagertalk.com. A great special going on right now where you can get 30 days, every single play, every single sport from any capper of your choice. $199, insane deal that's going on, and it only happens a couple times a year. So if you like that long-term all access, this is some of the best savings that you can make with some of the best cappers across different sports. Before you head on over to Wager Talk, make sure you hit that like button. That's all we ask you to do here. We're getting you winners each and every day for free on the Wager Talk YouTube channel. Hit that little bell as well so you'll never miss any of the shows we're doing. We got college football still to come on the slate here today. And as Steve said, check out his top 25 video breaking down college football for you. Fade the Public right around the way as well. So more reasons than ever to subscribe and get all the tools you need to bet all the sports you love. That's what you get here. Only a click away at Wager Talk TV. Best of luck, everybody.